Pledge allegiance. Repeat after me.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, Carol, roll call.
Steve Beardsley.
Present.
Mike Bright is absent. Grant Fuller.
Present.
Joe Palmer.
Present.
Megan Sheets.
Present.
Clarence Worthen.
Present.
Eric Woods.
Present. All right, we'll move on to the minutes. Does anyone like to make an amendment?
I'd like to make an amendment to the minutes on, down at the middle, towards the middle of the page, but more towards the bottom, where it says council member Beardsley made a motion to pass. We had 6 ayes and 1 nay. The nay should indicate Mr. Councilman Fuller as being the one that said that, just for the record down the road.
Any other corrections? Okay, I have a motion to pass as amended.
Second.
Okay, so we got
I'll
Joe's
make the
motion.
Yes.
Okay.
Brant, were you a
Brant,
second? Thank you.
Okay. Roll call vote.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Okay, moving on to public comments. Do we have any this evening? Anybody from the audience? Okay, we'll move on then to the public hearing. We will recess the council meeting and open up the public hearing. This is in regards to ordinance 21-12, the ordinance to vacate the alley behind the Eagles. We have Tom Little here. Tom, would you like to address this, or?
Sure, just briefly. I provided some updated maps to each and every one of you today of 2 different views. I have circled the whole lot, or the block there that the Eagles owns. And then I have highlighted in yellow highlighter the exact portion of the alley which is we're requesting to be vacated. And so I know we do have Stephen Timmons here from the Eagles here with us this evening, and we would just request that the council grant that vacation, as they are going to make improvements on it and pave over it and make it a really nice part of their property.
Is there any reason why they couldn't pave that without vacating that alley? I mean, is it just they don't want to pave it because it belongs to the city?
Right. I mean, they could, you'd have to get permission from the city, obviously, to do that, but, you know, if they're gonna put money into it out of their own funds, they wanna make sure that it's going to be their property.
Yeah, I understand that, but just curious.
Well, it's also, if I might, it's due to permits. So if we have events and stuff, we can't cross the alley.
Okay,
We have to have a second permit because you can't cross city property.
okay, that makes sense.
So definitely a safety factor as well.
I just have one question, less from a legal standpoint. Let's say that property would be sold at some later date. Is it an easy enough process to reverse the vacation if it would be necessary?
No, I would say no. Once you vacate it, that title is going to revert to the owners on either side. Now, the ordinance is subject to any existing utilities easements that might be there. But no, you cannot reverse it.
All right, thank you. Any other questions for Tom?
Did we ever establish if there's any utilities running through there?
Later, there's a power line that goes overhead, there's an overhead electric, but no water goes through.
I didn't know about it.
And I believe all utilities were notified.
Yes, I have a copy of all of the certificates from certified mailings to all the utility companies.
All right, is there a motion to move on to second reading?
Do we have to close the public hearing first?
Yep, sorry. Any other comments from the public? Hearing none, we'll close the public meeting, reopen the council meeting.
I move we pass ordinance 21-12 on second reading.
I'll second that.
First from Councilman Beardsley, second from Councilman Worthen. Any other discussion? All right, roll call vote.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets. Clarence Worthing.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
get that third reading at our next public meeting. All right, moving on to ordinance 21-13. I recognize that the mayor and our street commissioner could not join us this evening. Does the street committee wish to address this evening or move it to another meeting?
Your choice.
I mean, if you guys are prepared to speak on what Reedy sent us, I don't know if everyone got a copy of that, going through the financials. I spoke with Jason. He said that he'd be happy to go through it at a later date, but I didn't know if the committee had time to go through that.
I didn't know if Jason had got a hold of Megan or not.
No, but I do have the email that was shared. I think as we all know, when we had and Eric, if you don't mind, I'll just speak to it briefly, and I'm in favor of moving forward with it if the council deems appropriate this evening. Because of the dump fees that are charged to the city by the landfill and so forth. There have been a variety of reasons why we have not kept up with the fees, the residential portion. In other words, the city is now, it's costing the city an inordinate amount of money to be able to take the waste to the landfill and so forth. Wamplers and the landfill and so forth. This is the cost of doing business. And I think it was back in, I'm looking at the chart and I'm not seeing it. The last time we had an increase, and it was increments of $2 a year over the course of 3 years. And it's been where it is now since 2018, I believe. So 2018 through
I think
2021.
it started in 15.
Pardon?
I think it started.
Started in 15. So in other words, we're not in the business to make money from it, but we do need to keep up at a better rate because we're having to compensate the paying for our dump fees through our budget and other mechanisms as we can find it. So speaking for Joe and I on the committee, and then Jason is the superintendent street department, and as our budget review in August, it's suggested that we now increase the fees again, but incrementally over the course of the 3 years. Starting in 2022, we'll take the rate from 12 to 14, 2023 to $16 per user fee, and then the 2024 will cap at $18. So that will be in those stages, and it'll generate, I'm looking here, my goodness. And we're doing so we can provide, not only meet our obligation to pay for the dump fees, but we are also needing new vehicles for sanitation as well. And for each $1, and thanks Carol passed this along to me because I do remember we talked about this at our budget session, it's generating another $66,000 in our revenue for every dollar increase. So that would be the sanitation increase. So we would position ourselves to not only afford the dump fees that the city incurs, but also to pay for a new trash truck. And we want to implement this at the first of the year. And it is the last meeting we have in August, which is why I'm suggesting that we not miss a beat, that we move forward with the appropriate readings and voting process for this ordinance.
Let me start out by saying I make a motion to read ordinance 21-13 by title only.
Second? Yeah. Okay. Brett, second.
Thank you.
Okay, roll call vote.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthing.
Aye.
Eric Woods. Ordinance number 21-13, an ordinance amending ordinance establishing procedures and fees for trash collection and disposal of garbage and waste.
Okay, do we have a motion for first reading?
I'll make a motion, we pass 21-13 first reading.
I'll second.
And I'd like to reinforce on top of that these projections don't even take into account the possibility of future increases in dump fees and everything else that we're gonna face. So I just, we can't get further behind.
Thank you, Steve.
I would like to hear from Jason. I think everybody knows the issue with labor. I think it'd be appropriate. He gives us a little bit of information regarding switching from part-time to full-time. We can definitely do that at the next reading, but
Can I ask some questions for Jason too? So if I believe right in the budget meeting, he said years ago, they used to buy our recyclables and now we have to pay them to take it. I don't understand that.
yeah, I mean, the market has definitely changed. And it could go back, you know, I mean, that's a fluctuation. I'm in the same boat in my business. I've paid and I've paid, so. That's just the way that goes. Now, that's not to say it shouldn't be looked at from time to time and possibly, look at bidding that, but that's really up to the board of works. Sure.
Yeah, I'm in favor of passing this on first reading. I wouldn't be if we didn't have the opportunity for Jason to address it in futures, but this is to move it along and make sure that Jason's able to come to the future ones, and that's why we have 3 readings until then.
Any other comments? Okay, well, we have a first and a second. Roll call vote.
Steve Beardsley.
Aye.
Brant Fuller.
Aye.
Joe Palmer.
Aye.
Megan Sheets.
Aye.
Clarence Worthen.
Aye.
Eric Woods.
Aye. Okay, so we'll definitely have him come and talk a little bit more about that next time. Okay, under old business, we have the 2022 budget discussion. So did everybody receive their new updated sheets? But what I really took notice of was the revenue. I mean, I think we did a pretty decent job making some cuts. And what stands out to me is that if in fact we do get a solid plan that the DLGF allows of the ARP fund usage, that puts us in a pretty good position where we're not deficit spending on this budget. Yes, some of the funds show negative, but some of them show positive, and we get a pretty decent balance on that. But we did say we'd bring that back for discussion of any other changes, and Carol did bring up about our council tech budget as one that had a question mark on it. Did we have any other things that we said we noted we would talk about tonight for sure?
No, I just went through this right before the meeting and that was the only thing
So the issue there is simply we haven't received the quote back from the AV system that we've requested. That's probably going to be a minor change. We still have plenty of time to add that in before we do the ordinance, and that's only expected to be maybe 1,000 change. So any other discussion on that?
I'm still not happy with the general fund being so much in the deficit. I just don't like that. Even with the ARP recovery, we're still 194,000. And I think if we reduce the raises by 1% and pass that fire truck, put that off another year, that's 155,000. It gets us down to $39,500. I would feel more comfortable with that, but that's just me. It's still deficit spending, but it's a lot less.
I could disagree more. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I mean, our city employees, I mean, the cost of living goes up, what, 4% each year, 4.5%. If we only give them a 2%, they're gonna be making, less money to take care of their families. I'd rather find them somewhere else than
Well,
to take it out of their pocket.
But I know in the last 5 years since I've been on the board, council, we have raised their salaries by a lot more than 2% or 3% a year. So, I mean, they've really boosted that salary up. So I don't feel bad doing 2%. But, you know, that's just me. As far as I'm concerned, you could cut the council raise all the way out completely. That's not very much money.
Yes, I'd be okay with that.
I do agree, Clarence, that the vehicle for the fire station could be put off for a year. Particularly, I'd like to see some more specifications on that. I don't think not providing it this year will create a safety issue at all for the department, and they're already in for $130,000 for new turnout gear, which is needed. So I do agree that the command vehicle could be put on for one more year. That's one thing that I would look to do.
We did hear from the chief that that was not detrimental to their operations.
Okay.
So it's best that, since we're in a regular public meeting, that we do a line item vote for any reduction or change. So regarding the fire department support vehicle, is there a motion to remove that from the 2022 budget? I believe that was what, 85,000?
Yes.
I would make a motion to remove that from the budget.
Okay.
I'll second.
Motion from Clarence, second from Megan, and that was that from the lit
Yes.
budget? Okay. All right, any other discussion on that particular cut? All right, hearing none, a roll call vote.
Steve Beardsley,
Aye.
Grant Fuller,
Nay.
Joe Palmer,
Aye.
Megan Sheets,
Aye.
Clarence Worthen, Eric Woods.
Okay, that motion passes.
Now, just to clarify, that wasn't from the general fund though, right? So that doesn't change
Yes, so-
that number.
So I believe that we did talk about moving a couple things from the general fund into lit as we made some room over there. So I think maybe that's appropriate for the mayor to be included in whatever that move may be for our next meeting, but reduces our overall deficit when you put them all together by that 85,000.
And I'm sorry, I didn't study it. I don't see it, I should say, to know if should the dump fee piece pass in its entirety, will the revenue generated be reflected? Is it reflected now in the 132,000 that the dump fee increase would generate for 2022?
I'm gonna say probably not.
I don't believe so.
It's actually a separate line issue, isn't it?
Sure, but as far as whether or not Reedy put it in the projections, is that what
Right.
you're
Yeah, I
asking?
can't answer
I
that
didn't-
motion.
I don't see any.
I don't see it, but it is something to consider, isn't it, as we move along with our
Yeah,
projected figures?
it is. I know we kind of hold that one out as being self-sufficient in its operation, but it does provide cushion where we wouldn't be tempted to use other funds for capital improvements in that department.
And I understand that while in government, you've got to keep all the funds separate or anything, but I look more at the total, and even without the ARP revenue coming in, we were right at an $83,000 deficit in total before we just removed the $85,000 vehicle. So that puts it right at even without the ARP in total. And now, again, I understand that budget by budget, you have to keep that in mind as well, but I find comfort in that.
Any other suggestions for changes? Are we comfortable with this number? At least to move on to the next phase. I mean, we still have another opportunity or two, so. Okay, hearing none, we'll put that one to bed. Any other old business of the council? I have nothing else on my list. Okay, hearing no old business, we'll move on to new business. Carol stated the sanitation user fees, more of a redundancy on there, so is there any other new business of the council? Anyone has tonight?
Nothing here.
Nope. Okay, well, since we've got plenty of time. I know our mayor always asks, is there any business of the audience like to bring up, they didn't bring up during public session? No? Okay. I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Or,
So second.
all in favor, say aye. Aye.
Aye.